Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Eid Mubarak to everyone. Inshallah, everybody is enjoying a safe and healthy Eid and praying for each other. Inshallah. May Allah accept your prayers and also your sacrifices. Inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربي أني مسني الضر وأنت أرحم الراحمين. لا إله إلا أنت توكلت عليك وأنت رب العرش العظيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين يا رب العالمين. آمين.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Inshallah, you're all doing well and having a blessed Eid, and inshallah one where we can all destroy the false idols we may have in our lives. So for the last 2 weeks we've been discussing a story in the form of a parable that the author from the text that we've been reading from has presented to us in order to discuss a portion of the verse in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, from chapter 2, verse 21, O you people, worship. So leading up to and revolving around the core of our discussion is what is worship, what it means to worship, what it means to be a worshiper. And essentially this tying into, when I'm engaging with the speech of my creator, understanding how do I understand the reality of my existence, what I am doing here, and what does my existence mean. So how can I understand my existence, make sense of it, and be in a state of affirming it for myself. So in part of what we've been discussing is, questions like what type of approach or mindset do I have and experience as I go through life. So asking myself, what is my reality for me right now, as my actions and intentions are tied to the way in which I view the world. So what type of lens am I viewing my own understanding of my existence with? So for example, we've been discussing how a student has particular roles and responsibilities as a student. And however, two students may choose to act very differently within the same institution due to the way in which they view the purpose for which they're there. So if we were to liken the soldier example that we've been discussing, with there being two soldiers who are at a fork in the road and they have to make this decision as to which way they want to go, and one soldier being the rebellious one and following his own desires and not submitting to the divine law, based on our discussions, can be likened to a student who is rebellious and follows their own desires and does not follow the divine law. And as we've been discussing, the divine law being carrying out one's duties of one's commander or one's teacher, without misinterpreting the purpose of the assignments, and with the recognition that everything around me as a student, what I am undergoing is within a particular and precise order, and hence being a part of my own education and training. So this means that there is nothing haphazardly around me, and the existence of everything looks to meaningfulness. So In choosing to follow these orders, I thereby choose to acknowledge the presence and authority of the role of the teacher as one who is teaching me and training me, and thereby following both the order in the universe. So literally, with the example, using study tactics or doing my assignments on time and studying for my exams, while at the same time following what we discuss as the manufacturer's manual book, or the speech of my creator, or in other words, the guidelines that would be provided to me as a part of my training by my teacher via teaching assistants, if you will. So at the core of this analogy with the two soldiers, or if you want to call it the two students, is also free will and the human soul. Since I have the ability to choose one path over the other. And we discussed how, although, there seems to be an apparent sort of freedom from responsibility in one path, one path seems to offer this freedom of responsibility. So freedom from responsibility. So this sense of lack of, or this sense of freedom. And so in defining or trying to understand this ability to choose, or the nature of the soul, as something that I experience through my consciousness and existence as I, undergo these different experiences in my life. So right now, we're all here right now because we've chosen to be here. So at every moment, I am choosing something over something else. So I find that I always have the ability to choose, and within myself is the ability to acknowledge if a choice is right or wrong through my consciousness. This is something within me, something that is innate. So if I choose something wrong, since it goes against my consciousness, it becomes something external to me, or the way in which I'm created or made. And I know this how? I know this through the feelings that are given to me. So if with the student example, if I choose not to study for an upcoming exam, or if I choose not to do my homework, I am made to feel a particular set of uncomfortable feelings that tell me the incorrectness of my decision. So in a nutshell, I am given what we refer to as our factory settings that are innate within me, that remind me of what choices are best or most fitting, or most appropriate for me. And while I have the ability to choose to go against it. So in discussing this analogy with the two soldiers, I think we can safely say our aim is to both recognize the way in which the author is using this analogy to approach the verses, so the method, and also finding myself as both of these soldiers or students, where I'm always making a decision one way or another, utilizing my free will. And in utilizing my free will, this informs me of my worldview, which may or may not align with the reality of my existence. So always trying to realign myself so that I can better understand my own reality and make decisions accordingly in a way that fits my human qualities. So essentially finding myself within these two soldiers or students, and seeing if the story is presenting, or seeing if what the story is presenting to me is upheld in my life. If I find that I am the soldier or I am the student, and I am always choosing between an apparent sense of freedom when it comes to my practical life versus having this apparent burden of the kit bag, the rifle, or we can say like the backpack, the hardcover books, the laptops or electronic devices, or in your notebooks, as a part of my responsibilities and recognition and sincerity in carrying out my duties as a student, or in other words, as a human being. So that's kind of where we last left off with this text. So today, I'd like to, inshallah, reread the last paragraph that we had left, and inshallah, aim to answer some of the questions that were still lingering in the air when we last left off. So thank you, host, for highlighting the paragraph that we'll be reading today. Since I've been kind of talking, I'd just like to see if there's anyone who would like to volunteer just to simply read, that is all, simply read the paragraph that is highlighted on screen. So I'll just give you guys a moment to see if there's any volunteers. Faria, thank you very much. Please go ahead and we can hear you read whenever you're ready. Thank you.
O rebellious soul, know that one of those two travelers represents those who submit to the divine law, while the other represents the rebellious and those who follow their own desires. The road is the road of life, which comes from the spirit world, passes through the grave, and carries on to the hereafter. As for the kit bag and rifle, they are worship and awe of God. There is an apparent burden in worship, but there's an ease and lightness in its meaning that defines description. For in the prescribed prayers, the worshiper declares, I bear witness that there's no deity but God. I bear witness that there's no deity but God. That is to say, he finds the door of a treasury of mercy in everything because he's believing and saying, there's no creator and provider other than him. There's no creator and provider other than him. Harm and benefit are in his hand. He is both all-wise. He does nothing in vain, and he's all compassionate. His bounty and mercy are abundant. His bounty and mercy are abundant. And he knocks on the door with his supplication. Moreover, he sees that everything is subjugated to the command of his own sustainer. So he takes refuge in him. He places his trust in him and relies on him and is fortified against every disaster. His belief gives him complete confidence.
Thank you very much for that lovely reading. So I know we've been discussing this paragraph a bit last week and even the week before too, but I guess to begin with one of our lingering questions, which is, I'm going to paste it into the chat here as well. What is the apparent burden of worship? So as we think about this question, the author says in the text that was just read, as for the kit bag and rifle, they are worship and awe of God. So these apparent burdens that I am carrying are the kit bag, or like we could say this, the student's backpack and books and stuff, they are worship and awe of God. There is an apparent burden in worship, but there is an ease and lightness in its meaning that defies description. So this question about how am I to understand this apparent burden in worship, it's very interesting to me in the sense that in both of these cases, whether the soldier chooses to go down the right path or the left path, there is an apparentness in both cases. So as we've kind of highlighted here, in the right path, or in the path where the soldier decides to carry his kit bag and rifle, or the student decides to carry their bag, there's an apparent burden in the worship of that. But in the left path, there is also an apparentness in the lightness and deceptiveness, or in the lightness and deceptive ease, rather, in not carrying one's own kit bag or rifle or books or backpack. So how am I to make sense of this I guess the first question is the apparent burdenness within worship. Because if this is the path that corresponds to with my human qualities, it should not, at least I'm inclined to say, it should not seem like a burden to me. It shouldn't be something that goes against the way that I am created. It should align. So, and I guess that's where the keyword apparent comes in, because he's not saying burden of worship, he says apparent burden in worship. So does anyone have any ideas or thoughts that they'd like to share regarding this? How can I reconcile this sense of apparent burden in worship with my createdness, where, you know, the way what my creator is asking me to do, or the way in which I'm created, shouldn't go against the way in which I am created. There shouldn't be a contradiction there. So Afshan, I see your hand up. Please go ahead. Thank you.
So when I read apparent burden in worship, the first thing I thought of was just the physical side of worship, like the ritual rules that you have to worship at, wash before you worship and do it at specific times of the day. And it may feel uncomfortable to wake up early or stay late or interrupt yourself during your day. So it feels like, I feel like the physical nature of it is what feels apparently burdensome. But the minute we look to what we in this class refer to the human side, the minute we seek out the meanings and are able to discover, it's not enough to seek it out, to discover it and really engage with the meaning, suddenly, like, poof, that like apparent burden is gone. There's not only is there no burden, but complete freedom. So, and that's really how I read it. And I think that's constant a challenge, and that's a constant, I think that's a constant in the belief journey. And that's it. That's what I think.
Thank you for that great comment. Yeah, I think that is definitely, practically speaking, the physical acts of worship can seem, based on experience, as you said, something like an interruption in my day. Maybe I'm focused on something and then I see the time and I have to, get up and pray, or I have to do something, or I'm asked to fast, or whatever the act of worship may be like. I guess may go against what, if I say it goes against the grain of my day, then however I define my day should look like, it seems like an apparent burden. But what I hear you saying is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but because of the meaningful aspect of it, or what that physical act of worship looks to, since it relieves me of my burdens as a human being that extend to infinity, right? So if we go back to the analogy, the soldier that goes down the left path, he chooses not to carry any of his bags or rifles or rations, right? So within that apparent freedom, he ends up being at the mercy of anything and everything that comes his way. So now going the other, as what you've been saying, on the flip side of that is when I do these apparent burdensome acts of worship, or what may seem like a burden, an apparent burden, since it relieves me of that, feeling like I'm at the mercy or begging at the doorstep of something, then it just completely outweighs the apparent burden in the physical action, is what I hear you saying. So it becomes almost incomparable because of the relief of the of the worship versus the physical requirements, if you will. Are there any other thoughts that anyone would like to share regarding how to understand this apparent burdensomeness in worship? Asifa, please go ahead. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. Just like Afshan has said, I was going along the same lines. However, I was going to add something more to it. When it says, when the author speaks about the apparent burden, how I was understanding it is whenever we encounter, whether it could be a situation or even any bounty that we are given, that nothing, nor the situation nor the bounty comes with a title saying, I am coming from a particular source. So here it's like, as soon as we get something, we don't see a label saying that, I'm coming from a certain source. And what we have to do, where I see the burden part comes in, is we really have to strive to ask questions and seek the truth. I mean, try to find out the order in which things are coming our way. And that I feel like is like striving to understand that, to learn that is, I feel like the author is, which I think that the author is saying when he says burdensome in worship. But of course, the result of it is, once you understand that, the relaxation, the satisfaction you get, and the peace that you get is really amazing. Sorry about the background noise. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment as well. And we love the background noise. So no worries. I think that does also add on another nuanced point in striving to, at least what I understand from what you've said, striving to understand the order of the universe. Because if, as a student, I don't study per se, then even if I am assigned something, if I don't make an effort to choose to do my duties, to fulfill my duties, then I am not necessarily going to improve or fulfill my duties. So what I understand, one aspect of what you're saying is that striving that goes into trying to figure out and follow the order of the universe. Although one question that I have for you, if you're available to use the mic, is you said something along the lines of, and please feel free to correct me if I've misheard or misunderstood, is, things, you said something along the lines of not seeing things as being labeled as coming from a particular source. So perhaps before I comment on this, would you like to elaborate on this aspect of your comment in terms of us not being able to, or in terms of when I experience something, whatever it may be, or let's say to make it a little bit more practical, as a student, let's say I'm given homework or whatever, not seeing the label as coming from a certain source, how, if you can elaborate on that a little bit further, that would be great. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. The way I was, let's see if I can clearly explain it. So when I say that, I feel like just like a human being is given such amazing qualities, and we are actually meant to utilize them rather than to take things for granted. So when, in terms of a student, I'm not sure if I understood if I was to give the example of a student, for a student, he has to do his homework. Okay, he knows he has to do his homework, but it's not apparent to him that he has to study maybe 2 hours a day or whatever hours he may need. it does not come, the homework does not say that, hey, based on your capabilities, you will need to study a certain hours. This is what I was actually talking about. So what the student himself, he has to strive to find out for himself how many hours he would need to study in order to, successfully complete his homework. I hope this is clear, but let me know. Thank you.
Thank you for adding on to your initial comment. So I'm just going to take Fadia's hand and inshallah hear what she has to say. Please go ahead, Fadia.
So I just wanted to share in what I understood from Asifa's comment about things are not apparent to us, as far as, when we interact with the universe. At first glance, we can just heedlessly be living our lives here, or, without questioning, like was emphasized by, all of us here, that we need to investigate and question, like, what is the purpose of all this? What is the purpose of this meaningful universe? So if I'm not doing any of that, then, things don't come in that way, like with a label saying that, hey, you got to look into it. So I have to like do that investigative search or query from my end, and to figure out, why are you in existence? Just looking at an orange here, why do you come to exist here, or anything it can be. So then from there, because we human beings, we look for meaning in anything that we do. Otherwise we can just, go on, morning to evening, Monday to Friday, January to December, just do whatever is it that we do. Just like any of you have pets, what do pets do? Eat, sleep, whatever they do, right? So really, I think what I understood from even the author, the way he's mentioning it here, because the next sentence that he goes on saying is that, but there's an ease and lightness in its meaning that defies description. So when I do that groundwork for myself, where I'm trying to extract the meaning from it, then the things say, hey, I just don't happen to be in existence haphazardly. I, just like yourself, I have a source of existence. So I'm just employed, in its name. So then, when we start unraveling the existence of anything around us, then things make sense to us. Although, so that's like the groundwork that all of us, we are given existence to do. Otherwise, like both of you said, with the analogy of the student can just go on, not knowing, okay, so why do I have to do homework? Why do I have to attend classes? I don't know, right? So yeah, I think it's just a matter of doing one's homework or taking over one's responsibility in terms of anything that we interact with. Thanks.
Thank you for both of your comments. I think that does shed a little bit more light onto the question, for me at least. So what I kind of took away, the main points, is that I guess on one hand, if I do not strive to do my homework, or if I don't strive to fulfill my duties as a student, then the meaning or the purpose of that education can remain blurry or unknown to me, because I am, on my end, I am not striving to even understand it. But having said that, within me is also an intrinsic need to use my potentiality and my capacity to further grow myself. No one, I would say, likes to be stagnant. Everyone wants to continue growing in one way or another, whether it's a particular field or a skill, whatever the case is. I don't think anyone would ever be able to say, even, I've either mastered, I am the expert at my field, and there is no further knowledge or skill set that I can potentially improve in this area. I think that's impossible to say. Even if I may be the person in the whole world who knows most about a particular subject, I still cannot claim that I know everything that there is to know. And at the same time, if I were to say, no, I'm good with where I am and I don't need to further grow, I think such a statement would go against what is actually within me, which is to use all of these human qualities, um, beginning with my existence and my consciousness and free will, to try to grow and further use them for the purpose for which they're given, or the purpose for which I find them existing. So while it may not be, while the student may not necessarily understand what, and others can chime in to see if they agree or disagree, the student may not understand perhaps the particularities of the specifics of a certain assignment that they're given. The student still, on one hand, has the need to grow, to further their own capacity and understanding, and at the same time has the ability to become aware of the reality that they are a student, and that maybe they may not know the particularities of what one experience or one assignment looks to. They know that it is still, in a broad sense, a sort of training for them to further their duties as a student. So that's kind of what I took away from your comments. And feel free to chime in if you'd like. I see Ali Murmur, please, your hand is up, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful introduction and also comments. I'm trying to understand exactly why this method of worship looks apparent, looks burdensome. Of course, taking the comments and benefiting from them, I said, I think the matter goes to this phrase here. Here I highlighted, who submit to the divine law. Why is it important? We human beings have free will. We are given free will and we want to enjoy our free will, practice it. That is how we are made. And free will leads me to be free in my choice. Yeah, that is why I understand the function of the free will in my existence is this, to fulfill this purpose, to be free in my choice. So I don't want to be restricted in my free choice. That is the requirement of the free choice. On the other hand, human beings are given consciousness as well, which leads human free will to question his reality, his existence. The consciousness says, yes, you want to practice your free will with no restriction. That is how it must be so. But at the same time, you have the capacity to question who you are. What is your position in this world? How do you explain yourself? These are the fundamental concerns of every human being if they really bother to question it rather than ignore it. We can ignore as well, choosing to ignore this option, to think who I am, what is the meaning of my life, how can I explain my existence? These are the very fundamental concerns, human concerns. So if I choose to question my existence, my reality of my existence, who I am really, then I can easily understand, I'm saying human beings can easily understand with no difficulty that there is a purpose in their existence. So their existence together with the not only material bodily existence, but together with the human qualities, doesn't seem to be at all meaningless and random happenings. It is for a human being impossible to attribute in one's to attribute one's existence to a randomness, because trillions of perfect adjustment, not only 1, 2, even if it was 2, 3, still perfect adjustment, perfect arrangement in one's existence clearly demonstrates that there is a conscious cause behind it. But not 1, 2, 3, not million, but trillions of adjustments, planning, deliberate act of creation, bringing into existence over and over again, as we call it in the course of time, Definitely, there is something going on in my reality. And I understand that my free will cannot be left alone. I think this point is crucial. It means I am practicing my free will for a purpose. Always I have a purpose. But this purpose depends on the definition of the purpose of my life. Accordingly, I take the direction. So within the core of this matter lies the consciousness of one's reality. Am I the product of random happenings, meaningless happenings, purposeless happenings? Or we have to think there is a purposeful act of bringing into existence and giving me the ability to question it and to understand the quality of this purposeful act, where it can come from. Can it come from matter? The problem is there. Of course, this is not the core of our discussion today, but I understand that if someone thinks about his own existence together alongside with the existence of the rest of the world and see the adjustments, perfect mutual correspondence between human feelings, human capacities, and what is going on around the human beings in the universe. It is inevitable that a person must come to the conclusion there is a conscious, deliberate arrangement, planning here in my existence. That is called in the text divine law. What does it mean? Law means purposeful arrangement. Divine means not by itself within the universe, but by the source of the existence of the universe. So the source of the existence of the universe has arranged, it must have arranged everything in a perfect planning and gave human being the freedom. Now you can either confirm it or I am using this word deliberately, deny it. You are free. Denying, I use this word on purpose. Denial is possible only through making deliberate choice to reject one's reality. So you can either deny it or you can confirm it, you are free. And that if you understand, if one understands and chooses the way that, yes, my existence is coming from a divine law, coming from a divine source, and I see that there is an arrangement, there is a planning in my life. So I have to choose to see the planning and submit myself to this plan. Very simple, extremely simple example. If someone finds himself in a city life, there are many people and there is a municipal organization. It means there is a planning in life, and we understand that we have to live by obeying the requirements of the planning. Typical example, for example, I cannot make a house in the middle of a road. I cannot drive my car according to the nowadays life condition as I want. I have to follow the rules, but in order to follow the law, I have to admit that this is a city life. There is a community life here. We have to understand that I am only one member of the community. And if I don't follow the law of this community life, principles of the community life, I will harm myself. I will just harm others and also myself, want my own benefit. For example, if I don't follow the traffic rules, you see what is happening when people find that one of the traffic lights are not working and there is no arrangement there. You find how the problem occurs there. It is against the nature of the town, city life. As I don't, if I don't follow the divine law in my life, I will find that it is against the nature of my existence and the existence of the universe. Apparently, when I follow the divine law, I may see that if I am not very careful, I may see that I am restricted in my freedom of choice. And no one wants to be restricted in one's free choice or freedom in choice. But at the same time, if I choose to the reality that I am experiencing in my existence and in the existence of the environment I am in, I find that by obeying the order of the creation, it is for my benefit. I am not really taking up a burden on me and putting myself in trouble. No, I am helping myself. Worship means acknowledging that there is a divine purpose in the existence of one's life. So if I follow the divine purpose in my existence, I understand that my life becomes very easy to live and enjoyable as the text set here, where was it? Apparent burden. Where was it? There is an apparent burden in worship, but there is an ease and lightness in its meaning that defies description. It means beyond description. That's what I understand. There is an ease and lightness because when I follow the purpose in my existence, whatever I have in my human side of my being, all my expectations fall into alignment with my capacity. That means I understand that if I follow the divine law, either in the existence of the physical world or in the existence of my human feelings, or if anyone comes and warns me, reminds me that this is the law of living in a city life, whether you accept it or not. These warners come and tell us what we have to do. So there are at least 3 sources which reminds us the reality of the environment, the reality of my human qualities, and the reality of the warners come and tell us, if you do this, you will harm yourself. If you choose this way, you will be acting in accordance with your own nature. So divine law may be the way we are created, and at the same time, maybe the prophets bring the message. Whatever they say, obey this. If we are careful, we understand that it helps my life to become easier, and all the apparent burdens of my physical existence, even the human existence, becomes so light. And I will say, yes, this life is worth living. Worship means acknowledging this reality. But of course, if we define worship only in the classical, classical may be very common way of understanding doing certain actions which are called, or quote unquote, religious actions, and limit this understanding of worship to religious actions, which is included, must be, I have to stop when there is when the traffic light is red. I have to stop. That is how I can make my life easy for myself, and my life becomes smooth. That's why I have to do certain actions. But these certain actions are for my benefit in order to satisfy my human expectations, because we have to acknowledge that human expectations extend to eternal satisfaction. That's why following divine law does not contradict human nature. On the contrary, gives the human nature the opportunity to open up into eternity, because divine means the eternal being. So attaching my expectations to the eternal being during, even in the general understanding, popular understanding of worship, which is prayer, I do nothing but interact with my eternal source of existence. So I can attribute my infinite expectations of satisfaction in my existence. I am attaching it to the eternal source that only you can give it. The universe all together, how huge it is, doesn't matter, cannot provide me eternal happiness. It cannot satisfy my expectations of eternal happiness. Only by attaching myself to the eternal source, then my spirit, my human soul feels comfortable and relaxed and satisfied. That's why it is a matter of choice. Ubudiyya, worship, is a matter of choice, but at the same time, this choice in its nature is relaxing, making the life easy, and my existence, making my existence meaningful, fruitful, satisfactory by myself. But of course, if I practice this certain religious duties as a duty, as a burden, as a command from my Creator, without understanding the worship meaning in it, in them, really, they become a burden for the purpose, not seem to be. They become a burden. They become an obstacle in the way of their free will. While I am working here, suddenly I find myself that I have to stop my job, which I want to do it, and go and pray, or I like to eat something now, I am hungry and I shouldn't eat, etc. Why? Because somebody up there ordered me not to eat. Oh, man. It is interference into my free will. It seems to be like this. This is only because we don't see the notion of worship in the action, within the action that I am performing. Of course, popularly, what understood from the worship? Obeying the command of God. It sounds very authoritative. It is not the command of my Creator. It is the way I am created by my Creator. I am just adjusting my free will to the requirements of the way I am created. When they are aligned with each other, they become compatible with each other, my life becomes so meaningful, and I expect my eternal happiness, definitely that this eternal happiness is going to be realized. That is the priceless good news for human beings. Yes, eternal happiness is only possible by the eternal Creator, and I am connecting all my expectations to Him, presenting to Him, nothing else. The universe is nothing for me as far as the accomplishment of my expectations is concerned. So it depends on how we understand the word worship. Thank you. Sorry for a long talk.
Thank you, Brother Ali, for your comment. I think, one aspect of this that it was highlighted for me as I was listening to you is this concept of need, being in the center of everything. So while I recognize the purposeful existence in the universe, I also recognize within myself the need to have a meaningful existence. So my recognition of the purpose in the universe, it goes hand in hand within the need or the desire that I have within myself for a meaningful existence. So when it comes to divine law and free will, the ease and lightness in the meaning of the action that I am performing, if it is if it's a physical action, is what is essentially where I begin to address that need within myself as a human being. So just to make things a little bit more practical for myself. So I'm just going to go back to the student example because it's simple and easy for me to follow. The student, in recognizing that they have a need to learn, that they have a need to develop themselves, it's not something external that is being forced onto the student. It's not that the student has to go through this education as an external command, someone forcing them, something that is not already innate within them. It already corresponds to the student's need. So this in following this divine law and in worshiping, I am actually just becoming aware of my own human need for studying, for growth, or in other words, for a meaningful existence and to meet my human expectations of eternity. Otherwise, I can, as we've been discussing, I can choose not to recognize this, but in doing so, I am not necessarily, the punishment of a student not doing their, quote unquote duties. It's not an external duty applied to them. Or if I don't follow the rules while driving, first and foremost, I am endangering myself, my own safety, as opposed to it being something external. So as a student, if I choose not to study, or if I choose not to consciously become aware of my own reality, I am essentially harming myself by not recognizing the need that is within me. So worship being not just not understanding worship as something external or only as something physical, but rather in addition to a set of physical rules to follow, because within my existence I'm also a physical being, but within those actions becoming aware of or recognizing or acknowledging my own reality as needing guidance, as having these certain set of human expectations for a meaningful existence, for permanence, for happiness, that I find that I cannot meet within the conditions of the universe in and of itself. So one point that was highlighted to me in listening to you was always centering everything that we've been discussing around this idea of need and becoming aware of my human need. If the two soldiers are not aware, or if I guess the soldier that goes to the left path is not aware or misconstrues his own reality, that he is in need of feeling secure. And while it's also important, as you said, that I am also given the need for freedom, right? I don't want to be restricted. But freedom there, that it's, again, as the author says in another part of the text, it's an apparent sort of freedom. It's not a true freedom that I think that I may have in choosing not to carry my kit bag and my rifle with me. So having this sense of freedom while still doing my duties, but those duties are actually something that looks within me, to me, and not something external to me. So that was kind of the main point that I took away from what you've said. Thank you so much for your comment. And I see a comment here saying, someone is enjoying the discussion as I'm a lazy student. I think, inshallah, by being here, we're all striving to be students who are aware of their position as students, and inshallah to study together to help one another in order to meet these human expectations, these human needs within ourselves. Are there any other comments? Would anyone like to make any other comments or questions on this topic of this apparent burden in worship that we've been discussing? So I'll just give a moment for anyone to gather their thoughts. There's a comment by someone that says very interesting dissidence. Would you like to elaborate on your comment, Sister Maha, if you are available to speak? Please go ahead.
It's quite interesting that what appears to be burdenous is actually something that serves one's way of being created. I'm always curious about dissidence, why something appears to be one way, but in fact, it is not.
Thank you. Very interesting comment for me as well. Yeah, I mean, just some initial thoughts is, I guess if I am to read the universe or not read the universe, or just to see things for what they apparently are, then I deprive myself of the meaning that it holds for me to address a need. So I make a conscious decision to choose the way in which I approach, or the lens in which I use to read my own existence and the existence of the universe. So if I choose to read things just as they are, then it just becomes that, you know, I am a student, or maybe I'm not even aware of the fact that I'm a student. I'm just like, okay, I'm just sitting here. There seems to be someone in front of me lecturing me about something, and I seem to have these books and, you know, notebooks or you know, studying material, but that's all there is to it. This is just a book, and this is just a person lecturing me. So it just, what I understand in that situation is just the apparentness of what things are. Whereas with this shift, or this shift in the way I view things, then in questioning, okay, why is it that someone seems to be guiding me or trying to teach me something? They're not just lecturing me, but they're trying to help me, because I find within myself a need to be guided. I have a set of questions that are tied to me intrinsically, existentially, that, you know, I want to have a meaningful existence, and I want to be happy, and I don't want to die and just rot and disappear. So as just initial thoughts, it's interesting that, you know, it requires me to ask the question, what is the meaning in the existence of this thing? Otherwise, I just see it for what it is apparently. And the thing is, as a human being, I do look for meaning in everything, you know? I may look for a meaning in the way someone says something to me, just in the way that they say something to me that may not be apparent in the context of what they say. And I look for meaning in everything that I essentially do. You know, if I choose to be here right now, there's a meaning, there's a purpose why I'm doing what I'm doing. Or if I choose to eat or choose to do something else, there's always a motivating purpose behind it. So I guess in a way, the way in which I find existence to be set up is it always alludes to something beyond itself. And what it is in and of itself doesn't seem to satisfy my human expectations. But that is a very interesting comment. Thank you for highlighting that. I'd like to see if anyone else would like to share any of their thoughts on either the comment that was made or anything else that we've been discussing. Safina says, a paradox where free will and worship seem to not link at all. Would you like to elaborate on your comment, Safina, if you are able to speak? I'll just give you a moment. You could do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you're able to speak, would like to hear your thoughts. If not, please feel free to raise your hand at any time. I'm just trying to understand your comment where you're saying there seems to be a paradox between free will and worship not linking. So I guess, Ali Murmur, please go ahead. I see your hand up. Thank you.
Yes, Maha and also our friend Safina are right. There is a dissonance here, discordance here. Seem to be, yes, Safina has also said there's a paradox, but the paradox in our understanding of what our free will is. Our free will is by its own nature really free. So it is difficult to explain for me. Maybe somebody else may explain it in a better and clearer way. By definition, free will means free to choose. Free to choose to benefit, to bring benefit to itself, or free to choose to harm itself. It is free, completely free. That is the nature of free will. So according to the direction that the free will chooses, the things change their way of appearing to him. If I look at the matter from this side, for example, I want to be free to do anything I want. And look, religion comes here and tells me that I have to acknowledge my, for example, creator. But the same person, I want to free as I want, but I have to breathe every second, almost. I have to eat every day. I have to use my eyes and be able to see all the time. I want to rest when I am tired. But the same free will doesn't see, doesn't regard these elements in one's life as an obstacle. It means a paradox between the nature of free will and requirements of our needs and the ways of fulfilling our needs. When it comes to acknowledge the owner, the creator of human being, the creator of human needs, the creator of human feelings, including human consciousness, including human free will. Acknowledge it or not acknowledge it, human beings are free as well. If I choose not to acknowledge that I am given existence by a one who created the whole universe, then my free will looks all sorts of requirements. The examples are given during this discussion today. Students are expected to do their assignments in order to learn so that they will have a meaningful life. They will fulfill their expectations. as a human being, or following the laws, the principles of the civil life in a city life. They depends on your source of understanding of your source of existence. The things start changing the meaning. I know this is clarified by H. Beza, our moderator, but I want to make that just a further emphasis. We have to understand that the nature of free will is to be free, to choose this way of understanding of existence or the other way of understanding of existence. But while we are practicing our free will, of course, we have to have some reasons. We have to see some evidence whether my choice is right or wrong. Every day we practice our free will. For example, no one wants to go out of the room or his or her house from the second or third floor window, but they have to climb down the stairs if they want to go out of the third floor of the building. Why do they bother that? It seems to be shorter and easier to go through the window. But human mind says, it is harmful. It is against my nature. I don't want to die. I have a feeling that I don't want to be hurt. That is what I am made. So they accept the way that they are made and choose the long way to go and walk all the stairs down. Why? Not to contradict their nature. When it comes to submitting their existence to a creator, free will makes that false, baseless, with no evidence. Claim that why should I follow, as the text says, why should I submit myself to the divine law? It means the requirements put in my existence, necessities put in my existence by my creator. When I am using the stairs to go down, I don't say that this is a burden. Of course, one can have an some other means to go down, but rather than, it's a simple, of course, comparison, that rather than going through the window, throwing yourself out of the window, you go and go to the stairs or take the elevator. So that is what free will is there. If I choose my free will not to accept that I am created for a purpose and I am expected to satisfy my expectations through acknowledging the source of satisfaction. Who can satisfy? What can satisfy my human expectations? Accordingly, what we call it worship, it means submitting to the divine law, seem to be either a burden or a way of easiness, release, maybe human satisfaction, if we are aware of it. The same thing may look a burden, the same reality may become a means of satisfaction. The worship or the reality doesn't change. We change. We human beings change. Reality doesn't change. That is what we need to notice. I wanted to emphasize what is already said. Thank you.
Thank you for your clarifying comment. So just to reiterate the last thing that you said, as being the main point of it all, what may seem like a burden to me, depending on the way I view it, then becomes a means of seeking to fulfill a need that I find within myself, or a means of human satisfaction for my human expectations and qualities. So there's a comment by Afshan, and she says, "It seems like we have to be convinced to use our free will in a way that we feel truly benefits us. If I have a sound understanding of what worship is, and I experience the benefit in my life, I will be happy to use my free will to worship." Yeah, I think your comment captures the essence of what we're talking about, because whether or not I am conscious, I'm always using my free will, and I'm always using it in a way that I think will benefit me. But I guess the crux of the issue is making sure that the way that I think will benefit me aligns with the reality of my existence. So in which case, as you said, having a sound understanding of worship is not as an external command, but something that addresses a need within myself, and my need to be guided, and my need to fulfill these needs within myself. Then in worshiping, then it's automatically linked to satisfaction, human satisfaction, and benefiting for myself. So there's no longer, as Safina had said, this apparent paradox within worship and free will. Maha says, "Hence I find free will to be not that free after all, perhaps. So does free will just exist to give us a hard time?" I think that's an excellent question. I think, just to make sure that I understand what you're saying correctly, I guess the part of free will that is not free is, what I understand you to be saying, is the fact that it is given to me. So I'm not able to choose whether or not I have free will because I am already given free will. However, as far as my experiences are concerned, within my experience, I can say I am freely choosing this way or that way. Whether or not the outcome is what I want, that's another issue, but I experience the freedom in that choice. But you bring up this other notion here about, does free will just exist to give us a hard time? So I'd like to open this question up to others as well to see if they have any thoughts. But okay, please go ahead, Fariha. Thank you.
So if I'm not given choices, how would I learn? It would defeat the whole purpose of existence. I'm given here to make choices, and that's how I learn, develop, and grow. So the nature of free will is such, yeah, I'm free to choose between options. So we just need to, I guess, practice it, and that's how we experience anything. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but I think it's just the whole point of free will. It's in its nature, it's free, yeah, because every moment I'm making any choices, like you said, and I chose to be here rather than doing something else. So we're choosing everything at every moment. I choose to raise my hand, I chose to speak. So people are choosing to write their comments. This is the nature of how existence is. Otherwise, how would I know, or how would I learn? and grow and develop if I were not presented with choices. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Faria. Yes, I agree in the sense that it at least makes sense that it seems that the role of free will is essential for me to grow and to develop as a human being. Otherwise, maybe we can say where there is no choice, there is no development. But Ali Marmar, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
No, it's beautiful comments. I'm really enjoying the discussion. Thank you for anyone who comments and asks questions, etc. So Maha seems to be presenting a hard question. It is mostly misunderstood, this matter. The reason is very simple to me. Free will is free. Free will in its nature is free. But what makes life hard for a human being who has free will, if the person chooses the wrong, harmful option, harmful to himself option, against the requirements of the nature of the person, if someone chooses anything which goes against the nature of oneself, is very hard, because human consciousness cannot find any evidence to justify this option. It is not the free will to make life hard. It is the wrong choice of the free will makes the life hard. Why? Because any wrong choice is created, if you like, it is a wrong word, I know it is a wrong word, is made very hard to commit. Otherwise, if I make a right choice, if I take that tool to do the job in the right way that the tool is made, I am happy with the result. I cannot say that, oh, free will made my life difficult. Whereas if I don't train myself, if I don't educate myself, if I don't know how to use the tool to function properly, and if I use it in the wrong way, I damage myself. I say that because of this free will, I have chosen this result, and that is why my life became hard. We have to be very careful. The way the universe and the human beings is created in such a way that there is no way of justification for making a wrong decision which damages human nature, which goes against the human nature. There is no way of justification. There is no evidence. In the Quran, it repeatedly is stated that the Satan represents the wrong choice. Wrong choice has no authority, no evidence that human beings can be satisfied with. It means may be acceptable by human nature. So we have to understand that it is not the free will makes the life hard. It is the option of the wrong choice makes the makes the life hard. The first part of the free will is free will to be not that free at all. Yes, in fact, I agree with you. Free will is not set to make a decision between right and wrong in equal values. That is correct. To make a decision in the wrong way is very costly, very harmful, very burdensome. To make a decision on the right way is so pleasant. It seems to be free will is not left free. In fact, free will is free. To make the decision is free, but to choose the wrong decision is very hard. That is why it says, the free will says, I should not have chosen this. As if free will feels restricted. Why? Because right and wrong are not set in equal terms in creation. We have to understand this. To make it, for example, to deny that the universe may have a creator is very hard. If a person finds that, oh man, I cannot really choose to deny that there is a creator, there must be a creator, so my free will is restricted. No, free will is not restricted. To make a wrong choice is hard, but you can still make it. There are many people who make it for one or another reason. That's not our subject. So free will is really free, but how to operate it is not equal in making right and wrong choice. For example, if you drive on the right side of the road in America, of course, not in the UK, be careful, you will be in trouble in the UK if you drive from the road, because the law is there different. So in America, on the right side, you find that you are choosing to drive on the right side, so it is your enjoyable. You reach the destination as you want. How about if you drive on the left-hand side? Again, it is free that you can do it. But if you decide to drive on the left-hand side and, God forbid, got engaged into an accident, you say that, look, I am in trouble because of my free will. So the free will caused me a trouble. This is misunderstanding and so obvious that it is wrong. Free will is beautiful if you decide to drive on the right side. Free will may be the cause of trouble for you if you drive on the left side of the road, knowing that the law is established in this way. So we should be very careful. We should appreciate the free will. As our friends discussed, we got stated earlier on, if we didn't have the free will, we cannot really make progress. But at the same time, free will is not totally, equally enjoys its freedom if it makes right choice or wrong choice. That is the difference. I hope, inshallah, it clarifies the problem. But this is not a problem for one person at all. This is not a question that is asked here. This is a very universal, as far as I can see, very universal misunderstanding. We have to really work on it. If needed, talk about it even more, because it is one of the main problems of humankind for millenniums, not only for centuries. They are dealing with this problem of evil in the creation, especially in the creation of the human free will. People, those intellectual people, talking and arguing and disputing about the nature of free will, not only among the non-believing philosophers. No, free will was one of the main issue that the Muslim scholars try to deal with. And they found themselves ending up with contradictory interpretations. It has a very important impact on the Muslim thinking or philosophers. So it is not an easy subject at all. We have to take it seriously. I appreciate all sorts of questions concerning this matter. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, which I think was essential to making the distinction between the outcome of what I understand to be the outcome of using my free will and free will itself as a tool. And I think in a way it can be tied to worship as well, because just as worship can seem like a burden, it is also the means through which I can meet this human meet these human needs as we've been discussing. So likewise, free will is the means through which I can choose to worship. So I can choose to make free will burdensome for myself by choosing that it's something that is external to my reality, or I can choose something that is in alignment with my reality, thereby making it a means for worship, which is a means of acknowledging my reality and acknowledging my human needs and connecting myself to the absolute source that can meet those needs. Thank you for your comment. Safina says, yes, Afshan, your comment before about free will and worship and them kind of being aligned together. Your comment explains the apparent paradox beautifully. In a sense, the choices we make are an exam. Without free will, we are not choosing freely between worship and choosing to deny the divine law. Yeah, I think this aligns with what we've been discussing in the sense that the choices that we make using our free will is a sort of training for myself that I undergo in my existence. So without the free will, then I cannot choose one way or another, and there is no sort of education or training for me there. Assam says, sometimes I feel the free will is like a burden to do till I force myself to do it, and I feel ease after that, like memorizing the Quran or doing the Fajr prayer. I think, whenever I do something that aligns with my reality, then there is ease in that. There's the created feeling within me is already ease and peace and security, and I feel comfortable. So also in practical things like memorizing or reading or trying to understand the meaning in the Quran and doing my prayers with the meaning or with the consciousness of what they look to, and by being aware that of what need that they are addressing within me is then a source of ease for me, because I am again addressing those human needs within myself and connecting myself to the absolute source of existence. Safina has one final comment saying, the choice between right and wrong is made easier by the divine creator who guides us through his prophets and his words. Then when we understand, we can make the right choice and use our free will to make the right choice and use our free will to choose wisely is what she says. We can make the right choice and use our free will to choose wisely. Yes, I do think that again aligns with what we've been saying, and I would just add on the comment that it is made easier by the divine source, because within myself I already have these needs that it corresponds to one another. So I look for meaningfulness in my existence, and I see a conscious arrangement in the creation, in the way things are coming into existence, in the order of the universe. And so that aligns with saying, I look for a purposeful existence for myself as well. And at the same time, I feel a need to be guided. So having these message bearers or as we had said, warners, but I like the idea of reminders, people who remind us of what is already within myself and existing in the universe that align with the speech of my creator. Thank you. I know we are a little bit over time. I apologize for that. Maha, I just wanted to see if you have any final comments or any final comments that you'd like to make before we close for today, since you had asked that lovely question. And I guess if not, inshallah, we can close here for today. I did make a quick meme again. I could not help myself in regards to the topics for today. So you guys can check that out with the link that I posted in the chat box. And inshallah, host, do you mind closing for today? If that's okay with you, inshallah. You're currently, okay.
If you do it, I will be very pleased. As much as you can. Just open your heart to your creator, Allah, God.
Thank you. Okay, inshallah, no problem. Thank you all again for a very beneficial discussion. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت عليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانهم الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. So inshallah next week, I think we can continue from a couple of other questions that were left off. So I'll just paste them in the chat box here for the moderator for next week to look at, and they can choose to use these if they wish. Thank you. You are currently muted, host.
Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, Eid Mubarak to all of you. And I would like to see you next Saturday and next Monday as well, following weeks. Eid, God willing, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Eid Mubarak.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله